Hi everybody, this is Sheri Grunska and welcome to the Horse Barn Management Show. And for some of you that don't know, we were calling it webinars for like 2 months, and I don't like the name webinar and I'm kind of done with that. And we're going to keep going. We're going to call it the Horse Barn Management Show, and it's through Pro Barn Management, which is a consulting business I started. And you can go on probarnmanagement.com to find all these live shows, my podcast, my books for sale, and also I do consulting. So if you're not doing anything, check out Pro Barn Management. And welcome to the show. If you want to ask a question, just jump on in. I have my dear friend Tricia here. There's her hand. She is taking all the questions because I don't see them on the screen, and she'll be reading them to me. And you can also text at 920-205-7518, and we're glad you're here. So, and also let me know where you're from. It's so cool when I see people from different states and Canada and other parts of the world, so that's kind of exciting. So join in. So, just for some of you that are the first time to this site, I decided to do this live Monday night webinar show. I decided to do that because I just felt there's really a need for people who get in these horse businesses and these boarding stables, and you know, they go into debt and they're just having all kinds of problems, and I just thought it would be nice to have a Q&A where you can ask questions, you can talk about things. I'm listening to Trish right now, John Candy. I love working with her. We laugh a lot. So I can hear the little papers. So anyways, I felt there was a need. We started our business, Vinland Stables. We built a barn, 26,000 square feet, over 16 years ago. We made lots of mistakes. We got ourselves into massive debt, and on top of it, I thought I knew how to manage a barn with like 40 horses, and I really didn't. But the people part, it was really hard. Everything was a blur the first few years, and I couldn't find any books out there, anything that talked about this kind of stuff, the real stuff, the stuff that either makes you successful or the stuff that is very real on what happens in boarding stables, so that you can be the best manager and business owner that you want to be. So I decided to start writing books about it, and years later we're here now and we're doing live shows, and it's super fun. So if you have any questions, just jump right in. I thought today's subject was a super fun one, and we'll talk about this first. If you have questions about what we're going to talk about, you can ask during. I also have a bunch of questions that are different that I'm going to answer at the end. But the big subject for tonight was who's in charge at your boarding stable. And I mean, who's in charge? Is it the barn owner? Is it the barn manager? Is it the horse trainer? Or is it the boarder? You know, and if it's the boarder, then we got some major talking to do. So I want to talk about the dynamics of this kind of business with boarding horses. And the reason I felt it was important is because burnout in boarding stables is super high. Businesses losing money in boarding stables is extremely high. The banks find them in a very high risk because so many people get into it. They borrow $500,000, they borrow a couple $1 million, they're losing money right away. And you know, the things we talk about are endless, but tonight I wanted to gear in on helping you organize actually who's in charge at your barn, and this is going to probably mean a little soul searching on your part, because you have to grow as a business owner, and sometimes I would say most people are not equipped when they start off. And to give you a perfect example, I'll tell you our story. When we built our barn, our main barn is, like I said, 26,000 square feet. We have a huge indoor arena, 80 by 200, and it houses 27 horses. And then we had outdoor boarded horses. And you know, looking back, I was living in some fantasy world. I just thought The horses were going to come off the trailer. I was going to collect board. I was going to clean stalls and feed. And life was going to be utopian. It was just going to be perfect. And there wasn't going to be any problems. And I really am not a micromanager by nature. I want to let people do whatever they want to do. But what I took it a step further, and I just I let people take over the barn. I didn't have a barn manager because I'm the barn manager and the barn owner, but I didn't know how to lead, and I didn't know how to manage and deal with people. It wasn't the horses, it was the people that was the tough part. And I let people take over. I let boarders take over, which is a huge no. Don't do that. It's a recipe for disaster. It's a very bad business. It creates high turnover. And I just didn't get it. It took me like 3 years to finally start waking up and saying, what is going on? And that was after a lot of turnover. That was after we had asked people to leave. And it was my fault because I let them have that power. And then when I tried to take the power back, because I'm the barn owner and I'm the one paying the bills, there was a tug of war and a power struggle. The other part of it is when the trainer is in charge of a boarding stable, because the barn owner has let them be in charge. There's some crazy dynamics in that, and we're going to talk about that tonight. It's a lot of good stuff, and so if you have questions while we dive in, just go ahead and ask, and Trisha's going to let me know if you have one. Do you have any questions right now?
Just someone's having trouble connecting, so I'm trying to get back to her to let her know she can watch it later on your.
Oh, okay. Sorry if you can't get on. I'm sorry. So the thing is, as the barn owner, first of all, we're going to set this straight right here. You are the one that has set up the business. You have borrowed the money. So no one else has borrowed the money. You have borrowed the money, and you're running the show. And when you aren't running the show, then you either have to say, am I going to let a barn manager run the show, or someone else? And we're going to talk about some of the things that can go wrong. If you're not going to lead and be the barn owner, the barn manager that you need to be, I guarantee you, and this is true in life, if you're not going to lead, someone else is going to. Someone else. If you're not going to lead, someone's going to rise to that occasion, and usually it's someone with a strong personality, and it's either your trainer, a trainer, not that they all have that, but a trainer will either take over, or a boarder. And so you have to think about that, because the bank doesn't care who's running the barn. They want to know that they're getting their monthly board payments. And if you're having all kinds of chaos and problems and people are leaving and you're running short on money, they do care about that. So you have to know how to run this part of the business. There is a hierarchy, and there's a hierarchy in businesses. And it's the same with your boarding stable. Just like any other business, there's a hierarchy. You may yourself not feel like you're the barn owner or the barn manager or the equine professional. It can take years to take ownership of that, to where you really feel comfortable in that skin, being a business owner. I know I did at first. I just thought of myself as the same person, same Sheri, the person who had boarded horses before. I'd worked at a couple barns, who loved horses. I didn't think of myself as the person who had to enforce the rules, had to get control, had to make things organized. And I'm not alone in that. That is something I hear from people all the time, and usually it's women, because I think for us the natural thing is to nurture and to give encouragement. And when we have to go the other route and all of a sudden call someone because they're not following the barn rules, it's very uncomfortable for us. And so there is a transformation that has to take place, and it doesn't always happen overnight. Very few people, I think, are just born with that naturally. I think it's a progression. You learn, you take 2 steps forward, you make a mistake, you take a step back, and then you keep going, and you learn to be a leader in your business, no matter if it's a restaurant, no matter if it's a retail store. Someone has to be in charge, and that means sometimes calling shots that no one likes. And if you all of a sudden say, I don't like any part of that, and you just push it aside and you let other people naturally take over, I guarantee you're going to have headaches. And in the long run, it's going to cost you money. So I want to talk about that. There is a hierarchy to it. And the truth is, the one paying the bills, the one that took out the loan, is the top person. It just is. It's your business. You're the one that has to make sure that, you're the one that signed the loan paper. You're the one that has to make sure the hay is paid for, the grain is paid for, the bedding is done, the horses are safe, they're healthy, they're in great herds. Ultimately, it all falls back on you. Even if you have a barn manager doing stuff, if they're not doing things correctly, I guarantee you boarders will bypass that barn manager and they will go to the barn owner if they're upset. I see it all the time, and I see it in a lot of barns, and it causes a lot of strife. It causes a lot of tension between the barn owner, the barn manager, and from the boarders. So I'm going to help you work through some of that. Let's see. I wrote some notes here. If you are not in charge of your business, you're going to have turnover, and let me explain how that works. So if you are not in charge and you're letting a boarder make decisions in the barn, or a trainer make decisions in the barn, and you've kind of just stepped out of it because you're not happy with, you don't feel comfortable making decisions or telling someone this or that, I guarantee you are going to have other people that are going to be upset. They're not going to know who's in charge, and you'll probably end up with turnover. Turnover will always mean loss of income. It's always going to be more work for you, and it just becomes very stressful. So I want you to think about that. The other part of it too is when you have the trainer or the barn manager and you have put them in charge, you have to realize that they have no skin in the game. If a trainer decides to keep a bunch of horses in the stalls for the morning because they want to ride them, and those stalls still need to be cleaned and everything still needs to be done, now you have horses in that normally go outside every day, but the trainer did it because it's easier for them. You're going to go through more bedding, probably more hay, more water, a lot more work has to be done. Those horses will get put out. The trainer doesn't understand, they will not understand that. And to them, they'll think it's no big deal. But it is a big deal if if most of the horses went outside but 5 horses that she was going to ride, and they're into like 11 or 12. Those stalls are going to be a lot heavier to clean as far as poop and urine. And you'll probably be topping the water bucket an extra time that day. That is all extra work, and someone's got to do it. There's expense in that, and it costs more money. So here at our barn, I made it a rule after learning the hard way that even when trainers come to our barn, and we have 5 trainers that come to our barn right now. If the horses go out for the day, the horses cannot stay in for riding or for lessons. They have to go out and get the horse and bring them in, because we're cleaning the stalls early in the morning, and it costs more. It's more work for us when horses are going in and out all the time. And the other part of that is we've already fed the horses outside. So now, let's say the trainer comes at 8 and they ride the horse and then they put the horse outside. There's not enough hay outside for the horse. It kind of gets a little bit, to me, it makes more work for everybody, and it causes issues with the horse sometimes. So I'm a big believer in how the barn owner has set up the chores to be done, everybody follows suit. So the way David and I do our chores, even though I'm the barn manager at our barn, if I hired a barn manager, I would tell her this is how I want it done every day, and the trainers have to follow suit. And the trainers coming in, you know, they are working out of your building and they're making good money, and they should. They do a lot of work with horses, and I'm not a trainer, but we need them. But they need you too. They need you because they're using your facility, and so they need to follow suit on how you're doing chores to make your job easier. Some trainers don't understand that, and we don't have any of those here, but I make it very clear that they have to go out and get the horse. I've had trainers say, well, can you leave this horse in the morning because I'm going to ride at 8? And I say no, and they get upset, and that's just too bad. That's how I do it at our barn. Now, do I risk them getting mad and encouraging that boarder to move their horse to a different stable so it's easier for the trainer? Sure I do. But you have to somehow draw the line somewhere and say, this is how I'm going to do it at my barn for all the professionals that are using my barn. So I want you to think of that when you're thinking about the barn owner, the barn manager, the trainer, and the boarder, because it all is connected, and it's all connected to you. Do you have any questions? Okay. If you have any questions, just jump on in. One of the biggest problems that I see in barns when I go to the facility, and they have a barn owner and then they have a barn manager, is that oftentimes they have a barn manager that is maybe a little bit too young, too inexperienced, and the boarders kind of walk all over them. So I don't know how else to say this, but you have a $500,000, you have $1 million facility, and you hire a 19-year-old to be the barn manager. You wouldn't normally do that in most businesses. You know, you'd want someone that has a little bit more education in what they're doing and can handle those strong personalities. But if you have someone in mind and they're young like that, then you need to go beside them, and you have to be the voice behind them so that these people, these boarders, understand that you and the barn manager have everything equal. Everything is how you agree with doing turnout, how you agree with how the stalls are done, with feeding. The barn manager understands it completely. They're going to do it exactly how you want it, and yet you're going to back up the barn manager. So if someone comes to the barn manager and they say, I'd like to leave my horse in tomorrow morning because I have a lesson at 9 o'clock, so can you feed him in the stall and leave him in? And the barn manager says no, and it's a young girl, and she says no, and then the horse owner goes and they call the barn owner and they say, look, I just talked to the barn manager and I want my horse in tomorrow, and she told me no, I really need this. I really need my horse in because it makes it easier for me when I get there. My horse isn't muddy. If you have a rule at your barn that the horses go out even if it's muddy, and that's the rule, you have to back up the barn manager, because if you don't back her up, you're going to have lots of problems down the road because they're going to continue to bypass. And what's worse is a lot of them will talk amongst each other. It shows lack of respect for the barn manager on their part, and you have also kind of brought that level down as far as respect for the barn manager. So now she starts to lose her confidence, he or she starts to lose her confidence. So it's so important to make sure you have a game plan for how you want your barn run, and the barn manager is going to run it exactly the same way. When it's not done that way, that is when everybody's saying who's in charge. And they laugh and they say, you know what, no one's in charge here. I'm going to call the barn owner because the barn manager, she's going to tell me no anyways, and I know I can get a yes out of the barn owner. It happens a lot. And that's where people get stressed out, and you have to you have to really be as one, the barn owner and the barn manager, to make it work well. And then once you do that, then things start to settle down. And the way I look at it, those people that, if they don't like the way that's going to work and they get mad, then it's not the right barn for them, because it's your business, it's your money, it's your bills, and that is just how it works. Just like going to work out at a gym or any other place. If the place closes at 8 and they want to stay till 9, and they bypass the barn manager to call the barn owner, and the barn owner says, yes, you can stay till 9 even though the regular hours are 8, you will have nothing but chaos and problems. So those are some of the things I want you to think about. It's really super important for the barn owner and the barn manager to have the same vision. And the barn manager may not understand all the expenses and everything that you're spending out as the barn owner, but you need to kind of clarify with them and let them know some of this so that they get an understanding of what is on the line here as far as the business and the risk, and you can't be losing money. You need to get that through to them. You also, I think the most important thing is you have to have the same vision. And if the barn manager wants to put the barn in a different direction, and she's only interviewing people for tours of a certain discipline, and you want it to be a different way, if you guys aren't on the same page, you're going to have problems. So you want to make sure you have a barn manager that is going to learn from you, is on the same page as far as vision for the barn, and you're going to be her backbone when she needs to kind of toughen up, especially if she's a little younger. You're going to have to be the strength behind her when someone asks her something. You're going to have to back her up, and that gives her confidence to learn and grow and be a leader in the future, because she will be the next generation of leaders, especially if she's young and you're older. So it's something to think about. Any questions?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If a boarder tells you they want to leave their horse in for an appointment in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
do you tell them no? It
Mm-hmm.
can be inconvenient, like you're saying.
Okay. So there are some, at our barn, there are some exceptions to that, and that is for a farrier appointment, a vet appointment, chiropractic, those kind of appointments. The horses can stay in for those appointments, because especially for the farrier, because when it's muddy out, they don't want to be dealing with muddy feet. It's nice for the farriers, so the horses can stay in for that. We have horses that show in the summer. If they're leaving in the morning, of course they're going to stay in because they've been bathed and cleaned and all that. If we have people going on trail rides and they're leaving in the morning, they can also keep their horse in. If we have a clinic at our barn, and someone's coming and it's going to be an all-day clinic, they can leave their horse in for the clinic. So I do have a few exceptions to that, but I don't for lessons, and I don't just because it's muddy outside. I don't for just because all the horses are going out, and if we have one horse in, usually they get kind of worked up. And then you start setting this precedence where people just start asking, oh, I don't want to have to deal with a rainy, like if in the summer and it's raining, they don't want to deal with it. So they'll say, please leave my horse in. Pretty soon you're going to have horses that are in all day long. And the reason I know that is because we experienced that. We'd have people say, when we first started, we had people that would say, please leave my horse in the morning. And we did it 15 years ago. Because they wanted to come out and they wanted to ride at 9 in the morning, or they had a lesson at 9. 1 o'clock and the horse is still in. They are long gone. They left the horse in, or they never had the lesson and they never came and put the horse out. The stall is trashed. It's double the poop. And we learned really quick within the first couple years we were going to change that. And I had people upset at me, and I think I had a couple of people leave because of some of those changes, but we were making so many changes that people were leaving anyways. But I just assumed in my mind, I thought, oh, they'll have their lesson at 9, they'll ride an hour, hose their horse off and put the horse out. And they didn't. Or sometimes they just didn't come and ride at all, and so the horse sat in the stall all day. So I have a rule that unless it's a vet or farrier appointment, horse show, trail ride, the horses all go out. If the weather's good, they all go out, and there's no exception. It makes it very clean and less stressful on me. The boarders that are here know that ahead of time, and we've had boarders here for years, and they are fine with it. If someone doesn't like that, then they'll go to another barn. And that's the thing you have to realize. There are lots of boarding stables out there, all different sizes, lots of horses, only a few horses. And if someone doesn't like how you do things, it's okay. Don't change for them. Do it how you want to. They'll move on, and another person will come that will love the way you do things. And that includes leading a barn, because believe it or not, it may seem almost kind of weird right now with everything going on in 2020 and 2021, but there are people out there that love rules and love a barn that's well run, that has someone who's in charge. They never have to guess. They can go home and not lose sleep over what's happening with their horse. And that all works together. And if someone doesn't want that and they want a free-for-all, then, my barn's not the right barn for them, because we don't have that free-for-all attitude here where, I'll feed at 6 one morning and, I'll feed at 9:30 the next. Or, we have no idea who's in charge, and, one of the boarders is running the show. And no. It doesn't work, and it's really bad for business. It's bad for your reputation, too, as a business. So it's just some of those things you want to think about. Do you have another question? Okay.
Okay. One says, you are very particular about your boarding contracts. Mm-hmm. Do you have the same kind of contract for your trainers?
That's a really good question. So I don't have a training contract between us, but you know what, I probably should. This is one of those times where I'm going to be really honest with you. I would encourage you to do it. I just don't. I'm being honest. I don't, because the trainers have been here for a long time. We don't have a problem, but I have had a lot of problems. So I've thought about it, but I haven't had to go there with it. And the last major hurdle I had with trainers was over 4 years ago. So what I did is, going into it in the future, I would sit down, meet with the trainer. They have to follow the same barn rules as everybody else. They don't get exceptions to that. They don't get to hog the arena, So I don't actually have something they sign, but it's a smart idea to do that, and I recommend it. And I've never done it. That sounds kind of bad, but it's true. I mean, I just haven't, because I have a really good relationship with the trainers here, and I just don't have a problem. But if you're starting, I guess I should have had that in the beginning when we were starting out, because I was so new at boarding and having this business that I didn't understand the whole dynamics of the trainers at a barn. And it got really complicated really fast, and I had trainers running the show, and it was a nightmare. Now I get it, and they don't get to run the show, and I have set that precedence right away, and they understand it right away. And I'm not being a jerk about it. I'm not, I kind of sound like I'm kind of a hard person. I'm just I'm not really, but it's how you carry yourself, and because you've experienced the bad stuff, and you've experienced trainers walking over you or pressuring you to do things a certain way. Once you've gone through all that, you tell yourself you're never going to go through it again. So I don't even let it get to that, because I'm very aware of what's happening now. So when a new trainer comes in, I don't even have to worry. It's not even going to go there, and I already know what to look at. But as a brand new, when I say brand new barn owner, I'm talking in the first 2 or 3 years of doing it. It is good to have a contract to write up on, that they must follow the barn rules, the barn hours, communication, and it kind of sets the tone for who's in charge. And so let me talk a little bit about the dynamics when a trainer is in charge of a boarding stable, because it happens. It happened at my barn. It happens at other barns. I've talked to many, many barn owners where they're newer barn owners and the trainer has taken over and has made the rules and is deciding how this is going to work. The thing is, the trainer is making all these decisions and they have no clue what it's costing the barn owner for those decisions on whether horses are being in, whether horses need to be have extra services provided, who's going to do those services. And so let me give you a little background on a situation I had years ago, because I'm going to try to make this really clear when I say who's in charge. This was a situation that I was not expecting, but thank goodness I felt like I had grown as a barn owner, so I knew how to handle it. If it would have happened 15 years ago, I would have crumbled. So my family had gone on vacation, and we went out to Michigan to visit my brother, and I had a couple people staying at my house that had worked for me and do a fabulous, wonderful job. And while we were gone, one of the horses in the barn colicked. And so the vet had come out. They had called me right away and said this particular horse had colicked, and the vet was on the way. And I said, okay, just keep me updated. And this particular horse also had a trainer that was training the horse. So you've got the barn owner, you've got the people who are like the assistant managers working while the barn owner is on vacation, and then you've got the trainer in the picture. Okay, so what happened is they after the vet did everything they needed to do to the horse, they went and someone needed to watch the horse every 2 hours. And if I would have been home, the way it would have worked is either I would have done it through the night and charged the horse owner for those services, or I would have hired someone to do it but still charged the horse owner for the services, or the trainer would have offered to do it and they would have done it, and that would have been between them and their client. And the trainer, who's a great trainer, but I don't think they were thinking, and she asked the people working for me to get up every 2 hours through the night to go and check on the horse. So she offered them, but that meant that there was a fee for the horse owner, and the horse owner wasn't aware of that, and nothing had been said. The trainer just took it upon herself to do that, and that's not how I operate. I explain to the horse owner when I have a situation, I'll say, I'll do this for you, there will be a fee, and they have to decide if they want to accept or not. The trainer kind of bypassed all that and told these two people working for me what they were going to do. So in that situation, I, as the barn owner and the manager, had to trump everything and say, no. They can check on the horse every 2 hours, but we need to let the people who own the horse know that there's going to be a fee for that. And then they can decide if they want to come out or if the trainer wants to come out. I'm not going to let a trainer make decisions for a horse that is being boarded and in my care, because at that moment the horse is not in training. The horse is in my care as far as the barn owner boarding the horse. So it got a little, I don't know if tense is the right word, but a little bit. We talked it all through, got it all figured out, but I had to take control of the situation because these girls who would have had to get up every 2 hours to check on this horse, first of all, they're not going to get any sleep. Second of all, they need to be paid for that. Well, if I'm paying them for that work because they are working for me, then that horse owner needs to pay them. Someone needs to pay because it's not coming out of my pocket. And that was one of those really unique situations that I think if it would have happened 14, 15 years ago, I would have ate it and ended up losing money, and it would have just been chaos. I knew enough ahead of time to how this all works, the dynamics of it, and I had to explain it to the trainer, and she finally got it, and I had to kind of put my foot down. And you know, those are the kind of things I think sometimes you don't realize until they're happening, and it's always a learning thing. I look at it like you take it as to me, it's a really good learning thing on how to manage a barn, who's in charge, who is next in line, how that works. And if the trainer would have stayed at the barn in our lounge and got up every 2 hours to take care of the horse, it would have been fine too. That would have been her thing as the trainer. But she put that on someone else, and that's where I had to intervene. So that's what I mean by who is in charge at the barn. In that moment, the horse owner probably wondered who was in charge, but thank goodness the girls working for me called me in Michigan, and I took over right away. It's kind of that crazy stuff that sounds like, oh, that'll never happen to me, but it will. It happens to everybody. Every barn I've ever been to, they've had situations like that. Who's in charge? Because someone takes over right away because you're not right in the picture. So I want you to think it through. Do you have a couple questions?
I do.
Okay.
Do you screen your boarders before you sign a contract and check the references? Sorry.
I don't really, but there is no guarantee that you're going to have a bad boarder or a boarder that gets there and all of a sudden doesn't like how you do things, or is crazy. I mean, you can do your best. I think the best way to screen them, when you say screen, I guess I do screen them, but I don't like go and look up their CCAP records if they have, you know, anything like that. I don't look at if they have a criminal history or anything like that. I don't do anything like that. But I do screen them as far as I know what questions to ask them. I screen them by making sure they know exactly how we do things at our stable, so that when I see the reaction, I know if it's going to be a good fit or not. Perfect example, I had a lady who came and she had an older horse in his 20s, and this was last summer. She came for a tour, seemed very nice, and after more I got talking to her, the horse had health issues, but she wanted the horse to have a hay net in the stall, and I said, well, there's really no reason to if he's eating perfectly fine. And we kept talking, and the more I talked to her, the more I realized the horse didn't need the hay net. She wanted the hay net for the horse, and I told her I don't do it unless it's a medical issue and it's prescribed by the vet, because I don't want to do a bunch of hay nets, and that's my own personal thing. It's nothing against them. It's just when you have a lot of horses, it's a very time-consuming thing, and we don't do hay nets unless it's a medical issue. And her reaction, she got very upset. So I knew right away, check, that wasn't, she's not coming to our barn. She was very upset at the fact that I would not do that. So I guess in that way you can screen them, but I think the best way to screen them is to be super honest with how you do things. You know, when you say you want your board, the board is due on the 1st, you explain to them that there's a 5% late fee after, you know, if you do it like I do, a 5% late fee. There's a 5% late fee after 5 days. And, you know, screening them by explaining how you do everything and being super detailed is the best way to screen them. I'm not going to look at their background. Now, once in a while, I'll get a call from a from a barn owner in the area warning me of someone. You know, but it hasn't happened in a long time. Hasn't happened. There's still no guarantees that a person's going to be the best boarder. Sometimes they get there and it's just not a good fit. Usually they don't leave because of money. It's usually other reasons. Okay.
This goes along with it, ish.
Mm-hmm.
When you meet someone interested in boarding and you get a feeling they won't be a good fit with how you run your barn,
Mm-hmm.
how do you tell them nicely?
Well, I have been really honest with people. Like the woman with the hay net, I just said, I don't think this is going to be a good fit for us. I've said that a few times to people, not very often, but I have been very honest. It's in it. I didn't used to do that. I learned to do that. Sorry, we're dropping lots of stuff here. Can you fix that for me? Sorry. I have been. I don't know if that's gonna. Okay, I have learned to be super honest in a gentle way, but if they're going to question the type of hay, usually if it's not going to be a good fit because they'll say things like they want to bring their own hay in, or if you only feed one type of hay and they want you to feed this different hay, or they want you to do things different than how you do chores, or how you do turnout. Than what you offer. All those things are signs that it's not a good fit. So in that situation, you can say, you know what, I don't think this is going to be a good fit for you. And you know what, be nice to them and recommend another stable in the area that might be a better fit. I do that all the time. I recommend, there's a lot of stables in the area that, I know how they do things. They know how I do things. I have recommended people to check out other barns that I know will probably be more accommodating for certain situations and certain things. And, like for one thing, barn hours, our barn is closed at 8 in the winter. And there are barns here that are open until 9 and 10. And if they work and they want to stay later or ride late at night, I know barns in the area that will do that. And I'll say, hey, go check out this barn here. It's a better fit. And so I just come right out and say it. That's how I do it.
Okay. Another one. How do you handle weekly feed changes? Clients constantly changing what they're feeding once versus twice daily, etc.
Okay, if you're on still, tell me if you're talking about grain. Grain and supplements. I'm assuming not hay. And give me a little bit more detail because,
I have a different question if you want to wait and maybe.
Okay, we'll wait and see if she gets back. Are these questions about? Let me finish up on this real quick because we're getting lots of awesome questions. Do you have any questions about like who's in charge?
Ish.
Okay.
Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
And then decide? What's the best way to transition from boarder to barn owner after I purchase the barn?
Oh, great question. Great question.
There's a little bit more to it if you want to hear it.
Okay.
The current owners will remain involved to advise me. However, I want to keep things as smooth as possible with boarders and already know things that need to change or rules that need to be reinforced.
Mm-hmm. So how do you, it's a change. I've worked with a few people who have been boarders at stables and then bought the place. And that is being a boarder, really a boarder that's going to be in charge of everything. And that is a hard, sorry about that, hard transition. And I think part of it has to come from within you, and part of it is a little bit deeper than that. You're going to be moving from being on the same level as all the boarders to now you're the barn owner. You carry all the weight, the responsibility of owning the business. And so you have to make that transition, and you have to be easy on yourself. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to, I would say, give yourself a good year of transitioning, because some of the conversations that you could have had with boarders when you were talking about things at the barn that you would like to change, now you're going to be the one responsible for changing those things, and they may not happen as fast as you want. And you know now what the boarders were talking about when you were part of that. You have to kind of separate yourself a little bit. Don't be rude or anything. You can be friends and say hi, but you're definitely going to take on a new role. It's emotional. It's at times it's going to feel heaviness on you as you change and become the business owner. And if you have that kind of personality, it might go really easy, but for me it was really hard because I tended to be a softie at the beginning, and you kind of have to toughen up, and it's hard because you don't want to be a jerk and you don't want to be like crabbing all the time, but yet you find yourself having to you find yourself cleaning up after other people that you didn't have to do before. And these were people that you rode with or were friends with. It changes the whole dynamics. So it is a transition. I would find a mentor, someone to help you work through it. I think that's the best thing to do. You know, a lot of people, when I worked for the school district, new teachers coming right out of college, they had an older teacher who would mentor them for a year. I think it even may have been 2 years, to get them through it all, because it was hard, because these young teachers coming out of college, boy, they were dealing not only with the kids, but they were dealing with the parents. That is a lot. Books you can read about it until you're doing it. It's really a different ballgame. And a lot of them, it was hard. And I saw teachers break down now and then because it was so emotional. So the best thing you can do is find someone not in your barn, but outside, to mentor you and help you get through some of that, and to talk with you through some of that, and encourage you. And when you make a mistake, you still go forward, and kind of mold you and help you get into being that business owner and finding your boundaries in all of it. It's a process, and it can take a good couple years, and just take it slow, one day at a time. And you're going to have some tough decisions ahead. You will. I don't want to sugarcoat it. You'll probably have some people leave because they don't like the new you, the business owner you. I hope it doesn't happen, but sometimes it happens. There's a lot of dynamics there, but take it one step at a time, and don't be discouraged. Just go forward with it, and you'll learn as you go. Okay.
I got an answer on the grain if you want it.
Okay.
It was grain.
Oh.
Do you want to hear the question again?
Yeah. Ask me one more time.
How do you handle weekly feed changes? Clients constantly changing what they're feeding once versus twice daily, etc. And she was being specific about grain.
Okay. So if you have someone, I'm taking it's one person. I wouldn't expect it to be everybody. But if you have one person, maybe two, I would sit down and talk to them and ask them straight out why they're changing all the time. We have people that will change grain now and then, not too often, maybe once, and it's not, some people will stay on the same grain and they're on it for 10 years. They never switch a thing. And then you'll have someone who could change their grain once every 6 months, or the amount. I'm okay with that because I don't have someone changing it every week. If you have someone changing it every week, then there's other issues there. I'm sorry, but they're micromanaging their horse, and it gets to be too, you have to have some balance. Changing grain on a horse, you're not going to see the results of what that grain changes in a week's time. If you're trying to add weight or to get a horse to lose weight, it's not a week's worth of grain doesn't make the difference. That is not going to make the difference. So if they're doing that, and I don't even think a veterinarian will say change it that often. There's other stuff going on there. On that, I don't know all the details, but if you want to call me sometime, we can talk about it privately, and I can maybe help you work through what to say to them, because I don't know all the details on that. But I had people change grain, but not every week. If they're doing it every week, then there's other issues. To me, there's other issues there. And, who knows what it is. But I don't know if that just doesn't sound healthy to me, personally. Okay.
You can go.
Okay, good. Okay. I'm going to keep going here a little bit. We talked about the barn manager possibly being too young for the position with your business, and having a hard time dealing with older, with clients who are strong. We talked about the trainer, and when the trainer's in charge, and how you could lose money because for them to decide what horses are going to go where, or if they're going to have training horses coming in and out all the time, 30, 60, 90 days. That gets a little bit crazy. So you want to think about all that. If you have a boarder in charge, you need to call me. Don't, how do I say this? it's a business. Don't let a boarder be in charge. You know, even if they're the kindest person, they are looking at it as a boarder. They're not looking at it as a business owner. And, you know, you're going to run into problems. You could hurt the relationship down the road if something's done wrong. There's also a liability to that because you're letting them, you know, run things, and you're going to probably have upset boarders that don't agree with what this other person's doing, or if they're getting special treatment. You know, the old saying, the squeaky wheel gets grease. Is that what it is? The squeaky wheel gets grease. It's true. If you have a boarder that's always squeaking and trying to control everything, they're going to wear you down, and pretty soon you just start giving in to them. And when you do, that's when you're going to start losing your business there. You're going to have problems. If someone is doing that to me constantly, and I've had people through the years who I can tell constantly just at me about something, pushing the envelope, trying to change things, trying to be in charge, trying to do this. And when it gets to that point, I finally have learned to say, it's clear you're not happy with how we do things here. And at that point, maybe it's probably best that you find a different boarding stable that will do all these things for you, because I'm not going to change how we do it. And they have in that right there, they have a decision to make. Are they going to shut up, or are they going to keep on and you're going to ask them to leave, or are they going to leave? You have to take control of it. When you let a boarder, they're going to keep doing things, and that if they have that type of personality, and it will wear on you. I think that's one of the worst things I see at barns, is when the barn owner or the barn manager has let the boarder run the show. It's not the way a business works, and if there are boarders watching this, I hope they're not offended, but it's not the way a sound business works. This is a business. This isn't a charity. It's not a thing where you just let everybody do what they want. There is big money involved in it. It's very expensive, and you have to draw the line somewhere, and that's super important. So don't let the boarders be in charge. And I have awesome boarders here, and I don't think they would be offended by me saying that. I think they like that they don't have to worry, and that I don't allow one particular boarder to be in charge. It's going to upset everybody else if there's a boarder that's in charge and running and telling everybody how things are going or how they're going to do stuff. It's unhealthy. Okay.
I have another question if you want it.
Okay.
Two more.
Is it about this, or is it about something different? Okay. I think, okay, well, we'll start. We have a lot of questions here. We're going to switch gears a little bit. Go ahead and shoot me those, and then we'll keep going.
Okay, the first one is, how can you gain respect from those in the horse world as a younger person? I am getting into the training, buying, selling horses industry, and will be the ranch manager at my ranch. But I often feel people do not respect me because I am young. How would you recommend combating this and getting the respect my job requires to make the decisions on the ranch without coming off as rude or entitled?
You know, I don't know how old you are, but I do think there are young people out there that the way they carry themselves, they naturally command respect. Sometimes it has to be learned if it's not. I think for most people it's not natural. And the thing is, I'll tell you one thing, it doesn't matter if you're in your 20s or if you are in your 40s like I was when we started our business. When you are new into something, it's almost like you have to prove yourself. And I had to prove myself at 40, and I let people do what they want. I had to learn the hard way. And the same thing happens with young people. I think the disadvantage for young people is they are younger, so older people feel that they have lack of experience, and it's almost like you need a little time on your side. I think the best way is take it one day at a time, do the best job you can, be super consistent, be straightforward with people, honest. This is kind of off topic, just a hair. There's a couple podcast people I listen to that are podcasts, and one guy, I think he's 27 years old. And 27, he's young. And the way he speaks and talks, he's very articulate. He knows when to be firm. He knows when to lighten up. I think that's the same for you as learning to run your business. You're going to just learn, be honest. When you need to be honest and you need to be bold with someone, you need to do it. Don't be disrespectful. Don't be rude. And I think people will naturally start to respect you, and it'll just kind of come together. It may take a year or two. If someone is being rude to you, then you need to be honest with them and say, look, you may not like how I do things. You may think I'm young. I do not deserve to be treated rudely, and put it in their face and be honest with you on that. Be honest with them on that. People need to start saying that a little bit more. You know what? I don't deserve to be walked over. I'm here taking care of your horses. I'm here doing this. I'm training horses. I'm doing all this. Sometimes you just have to spit it out. And it's enough to shock people. Maybe we need a little bit more of that, where you just say, I don't deserve to be treated like that. I'm doing the best job. When you start a business, you have to work really hard. And sometimes you almost have to work even double hard because you're trying to gain a reputation. You're trying to prove to people you know what you're doing. And it's part of passage. It's part of just getting to that point. And I don't think it happens on day one with anybody. It's just the rite of passage to get through it. And some people never get it, and some people get it right away. So I think for you, just keep going. Read books on leadership. I would do that. Read some good books on leadership, and be honest and very consistent in how you do things. Let your actions speak louder than your words. That sounds old-fashioned, but it's really true. But let your actions speak louder than your words, and don't let anyone put you down. Stand up for yourself. It's okay. So I hope that helps. Okay. So I have a couple other questions here. Has it almost been an hour? Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to zip through some of these because, oh my gosh. Okay. Let's see. Here's one. Well, I don't even know where to start because I have so many here, but okay. Can you talk about mud management? Okay, so we only have a few minutes. Mud. We have mud here in Wisconsin. We have a lot of it. We're entering it right now. So the thing about mud at your stable is this. Probably one of the elements people leave out is, how does it affect your boarders? No one likes mud, but you have to be very clear with people coming to your stable, and especially if they're coming in the summertime when everything's dry and there is no mud. You have to be really honest with them and tell them the mud situation. If they say, oh sure, I don't mind the mud, and then the mud comes, you could lose a boarder if they don't like it. But the problem is, it depends where you live, what kind of soil you have. We could honestly talk an hour about mud management. There's a lot of different things you can do for mud. We have mud here because we have clay soil and we're very low. There's a week or so in the spring when the ground is really drying out, if we've had a lot of rain and the frost is coming out, where the horses are really, you could tell that if they go out in there, it's going to be a struggle on their tendons, and we don't want anybody hurt, so we will leave the horses in while it dries up firm enough that they can go out. It really depends on your situation. The boarders here know we have mud. No one likes it, but the horses go out in it if I feel it's safe. And I'm the one that makes the decision. The boarders don't make the decision. and neither does the trainer. If I feel that the horses are safe, I take all the risk if a horse gets hurt out there. But if I feel the horses are safe in it, that it's not going to pull tendons and stuff. Not that it could never happen. I mean, horses do all kinds of stupid things, and they can pull a tendon just playing with each other. But I'm saying for the most part. Now, if your mud is extremely deep, then you have a problem, and yeah, it's your responsibility to fix it. And it can be a pretty expensive fix. We've had to add screenings into some of our areas where it gets real muddy in some of our paddocks and have it delivered to build it up. And we've had to build it up over the years. It used to be a lot lower, and it was virgin farmland, so it was really bad the first couple of years, and we had no idea, and it was bad on the horses. So yes, you can put drain tiles in. We have some drain tiles in and culverts to get the water off the paddocks as fast as possible. So there will be some expense in that. But if your boarders don't want their horses in the mud just because they don't want them muddy, and you have to decide if you're going to say, okay, if that's okay or not. If you are willing to let horses be in all the time, you might have a really wet summer, and then you're going to have mud through part of the summer. Well, then your horses are going to be going out a lot. I don't want to do that. I want the horses out, so they can hose the horses' legs off when they come in, and it works out fine. So, but if you want to talk about mud management, we can talk more detailed about that down the road, because it's just so much to talk about. It's really probably the toughest time of year dealing with all the mud. It's here in Wisconsin, at least, it's bad. So, anything else on that?
Not on that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Go ahead. We'll take one more, and then we will be done.
Well, this is one we had before.
Okay.
How do you handle raising board? Is it regular, like once a year, or every 2 years, or when needed?
Okay. So, couple things on this. And you can go back through some of the other webinars, and I talk in detail about this. I don't have time tonight, but it really depends on your expenses. I give our boarders a 2-month notice when I'm going to raise board, and I do it out of respect for them so that they have time. If they feel they can't afford it, they can move their horse. It's hard to move a horse around here, and this way it gives them time to look for a place. I give them a written notice, and I let them know 2 months ahead. So much goes into it. It's a lot about your expenses and figuring out what your expenses are, and and then once you get into it, it becomes real clear. If I can say, for anything we've talked about tonight, and especially about the financial part of it, check out my book, A Step-by-Step Guide to Starting and Running a Successful Horse Boarding Business. And it's a big book. It has everything in it. It talks everything about boarding horses, and I think it's going to get you to look at things you've never thought about before, and kind of help you streamline everything and get you to the point where you know exactly what you're spending, how to deal with a lot of these problems that we talked about. We talk about them in here. It's a great job once you get all this figured out. And the problem is that there's, and you can find this on my website, probarnmanagement.com, or Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It's such a great job. If you get this part all figured out, the problem is people struggle to get to the part where it's really organized, and they get burnt out, they get discouraged. It's a lot of dealing with people and learning to navigate all those personalities. And so I talk a lot about that because I want to help you work through all that and organize it all. I think that's it for tonight. You guys have been great. This went so fast. I have to apologize. I didn't get to answer all the questions. I had so many of them from the week. But I will plan on next Monday. We'll have Open Topic Monday, and I'm going to answer these questions first, and I'll make sure I get to them. So I want to thank you again for joining us, and check out probarnmanagement.com. You can find all these shows on there, all my podcasts and my books, and then other info, events, consulting, all that fun stuff. And we want to wish you a blessed week, and we will see you next Monday, and thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.